Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, we begin with a pair of incidents that are putting national security back in the spotlight at the start of the year. First, in New Orleans, where a man drove a rented pickup truck into a crowd of New Year's revelers in the French Quarter. At least 15 people were killed, dozens more wounded. This man says he witnessed the rampage.
Truck hits the corner and comes barreling through people, throwing people like a movie scene, like real life, throwing people into the air. They falling under the car.
The driver was killed in a shootout with police. He's been identified as Shamsuddin Jabbar, a 42-year-old Army veteran from Texas. Alethea Duncan is the assistant special agent in charge of the FBI's New Orleans field office.
We do not believe that Jabbar was solely responsible. We are aggressively running down every lead, including those of his known associates.
FBI Special Agent Alethea Duncan says authorities found an Islamic State flag in the pickup truck, along with 2 improvised explosive devices. She says more potential IEDs were found in the French Quarter. This attack happened hours before the Sugar Bowl was set to kick off at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. That game has been postponed to today.
Well, Nathan, hours after the New Orleans attack, an incident in Las Vegas piled onto the security concerns. A Tesla Cybertruck pulled up to the Trump Las Vegas hotel and exploded, killing the driver and injuring 7 others. Kevin McMahill is the Las Vegas sheriff.
It pulled right up to the glass entrance doors of the hotel. We saw that smoke start showing from the vehicle, and then a large explosion from the truck occurs.
Sheriff McMahill says fuel canisters and fireworks mortars were found inside the Cybertruck. Tesla CEO Elon Musk says the company has confirmed the blast was not caused by the vehicle itself, and he's suggesting it could be linked to the New Orleans attack. President Biden says law enforcement is probing both incidents, and he sent a message to the people of New Orleans.
To all the families of those who are killed, to all those who are injured, to all the people of New Orleans, we're grieving today. I want you to know, I grieve with you. Our nation grieves with you.
President Biden addressed the nation last night from Camp David.
And care on both incidents come less than 3 weeks before Donald Trump is sworn in as president. We get more on the president-elect's reaction from Bloomberg Television managing editor Miles Miller.
President-elect Donald Trump, who takes office on January 20th, called these attacks an urgent reminder of the need for robust national security. Of course, the FBI is probing both of these crime scenes, and Donald Trump has pledged to replace the FBI director. He's already nominated someone to be Homeland Security chief. But this highlights the need for robust domestic security. When we talk about everything from homegrown terrorism to attacks from ISIS and the like, this threat of homegrown terrorism is not new.
Bloomberg Television managing editor Miles Miller says President-elect Trump also used the incident to assail crime and border security, suggesting before the suspect was identified as an American Army vet that he may have been a migrant.
Well, we turn to the markets now, Nathan, and it wasn't such a great beginning for stocks in Asia. In fact, Chinese stocks had their worst start to a year in nearly a decade. We get more from Bloomberg markets reporter Mark Cranfield in Singapore.
A little surprising in some respects when all the effort the Chinese authorities were making towards the end of last year to remind investors about all the stimulus they're doing and all the positive aspects in terms of trying to promote growth in 2025. And yet here we are with little sign that they're doing anything today. And even a speech from President Xi Jinping at the end of last year doesn't seem to have rallied the market at all.
And Bloomberg's Mark Cranfield says stocks in China plunged 2.9% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index slid 2.2%.
As for U.S. markets, Karen, futures are higher as we kick off the new year following gains of 24% for the S&P 500 in 2024. For more, let's bring in Bloomberg's John Tucker. Though, John, we did end the year on something of a sour note, didn't we?
Yeah, good morning, Nathan. 4-day slump, in fact, marked the end of 2024. But keep in mind, Nathan, the period known for the so-called Santa Claus rallies also includes the first 2 trading days of the year, so not over just yet. Now, last year did mark the best 2-year run for the S&P 500 since the late 1990s. The magnificent 7 mega caps powered a surge of more than 50% of the benchmark index since the start of 2023. That was amid enthusiasm, of course, around artificial intelligence. And AI darling NVIDIA was up for the year 179%. So what's ahead? Looking forward, there's at least one key for portfolio manager Matt Stuckey at Northwestern Mutual.
The path of interest rates and the level of interest rates has really dictated winners and losers in the economy as well as in the markets.
And investors also waiting to see if the AI story is going to broaden out to the rest of the market. That would mean that earnings growth would be supported not just by the Mag 7, but also other sectors in the S&P 500. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thank you. Well, 2024 was one of the best years for cryptocurrencies on record, led by regulatory approval for spot Bitcoin ETFs and President-elect Trump's win. In fact, Bitcoin rallied 120% last year. We're checking Bitcoin right now. It is higher, up 1.9% at $96,500.
And gold's edging higher as well, Karen, after notching its biggest annual gain since 2010. It surged 27% in 2024. Traders assessing prospects for a slower pace of monetary easing by the Fed in 2025. And checking gold right now, it is higher by about 0.2% at $2,645.90 per ounce.
And it's time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Happy New Year, Michael.
Happy New Year to you, Karen. The New York Police Department says that it was not a terrorist attack after 10 people were shot outside a Jamaica Queens nightclub on New Year's Day. It was believed to be a private event with dozens inside. Police said several males walked toward the venue and opened fire in the direction of a group standing in line outside the event. NYPD Chief of Patrol Philip Rivera spoke to ABC7.
There's zero tolerance for these senseless shootings, these horrible acts of violence on our streets. And those responsible for this crime will be apprehended and brought to justice.
Chief Rivera says the victims were between the ages of 16 and 20 and are expected to survive. A 45-year-old man remains hospitalized after being shoved onto the path of an oncoming subway train in Manhattan. The victim remains in stable condition with broken ribs and a fractured skull. This woman was in the subway station and saw the incident unfold.
Something needs to be done. I don't know if it's enhanced security in the subways, help for mentally ill people in the streets. It was terrifying.
A 23-year-old from Brooklyn, Kamel Hawkins, has been charged in the attack. At least 3 people were killed in a fireworks explosion in a Honolulu area neighborhood just before midnight on New Year's Eve. At least 20 others were injured. Hawaii Governor Josh Green described the explosion area as gruesome.
There's organic material from our loved ones on the windows of the buildings across the street and the cars. I mean, that's what our first responders had to deal with.
Governor Green said that they will take steps to crack down on the use of illegal fireworks. President Joe Biden will give the second highest civilian award to Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson, the lawmakers who led the congressional investigation into the violent January 6th Capitol riot by Donald Trump supporters. Trump has said both should be jailed. Biden will award the Presidential Citizens Medal to 20 people today, including Americans who fought for marriage equality. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani is fighting to keep one gleaming set of sports memorabilia in the family. Yankees World Series rings bestowed to him by the team's late owner, George Steinbrenner. It comes as Giuliani has to satisfy a $148 million defamation verdict. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it. With the Bloomberg News Now, I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg. Karen.
All right, Michael Barr, thank you. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update, brought to you by Tri-State Audi. And we bring in John Stashower, and a Happy New Year to you as well, John.
And to you, Karen, as well. Thanks. The New Year's Day college football playoff quarterfinals had an epic thriller, a blowout, and a postponement. The Sugar Bowl, Georgia Notre Dame, will instead be played today, starting at 4, postponed after the tragedy that took place in New Orleans. Today began with the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Furious comeback by Arizona State. Sun Devils trailed heavily favored Texas by 16 points with 6.5 minutes to go. Regulation ended with 2 Arizona State touchdowns, 2 two-point conversions, and 2 Texas missed field goals, one on the last play that went off the upright. And Arizona State was looking good in overtime, having scored and having forced Texas into a 4th and long.
Ready to take the snap. Has the snap. 4th and 13. Ewers looking. Fires. He's got Golden open. He caught it. Touchdown, Texas. Matthew Golden strikes again. 28 yards on 4th down and 13. And the Longhorns scored a touchdown.
Learfield Radio, then they scored on the first play of the second OT, and an interception sealed the Texas win 39-31. At the Rose Bowl, Ohio State scored a minute in, led 34-0, went on to wallop top-seeded Oregon 41-21, so it'll be Texas against Ohio State in the semifinals a week from tomorrow in Dallas. The Knicks back at the Garden. They beat Utah 119-103. They've now won 9 in a row. Jalen Brunson sat out with an injured calf, so Karl Anthony Towns stepped up, 31 points, 21 rebounds. The Nets lost in Toronto 130-113. The Devils got shut out in LA 3-0. When the Giants close out the season Sunday in Philadelphia, they will not face their old friend Saquon Barkley. The Eagles don't want to risk an injury before the playoffs, so Barkley will fall 101 yards short of the all-time single-season rushing record still held by Eric Dickerson back in 1984. John Stash, that were Bloomberg Sports. Karen and Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. The new year is beginning with new concerns about national security after a truck attack in New Orleans and a Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas within hours of each other on New Year's Day. President Biden is urging Americans not to jump to conclusions, but he does say this.
I know I can speak for all Americans when I say our hearts are with the people of New Orleans after the despicable attack that occurred in the early morning hours.
When President Biden addressed the nation last night from Camp David, this morning we're joined by Bloomberg News senior editor Bill Ferries for the latest on both these incidents. And first off, Bill, the question that I think a lot of Americans are asking this morning is whether there's any indication that these two incidents could be related. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Nathan. Thanks for having me. Yeah, that is one key area of investigation now. So far, authorities have given us a lot more details about what happened in New Orleans versus what took place in Las Vegas. It's not clear at all if there is a connection. There is one thing that we do know, and that the vehicles in both of these attacks were rented from the same app, Turo, which a lot of people use to do short and long-term car rentals from directly from owners. That may or may not really mean anything at this point. What investigators are saying is that the suspect in the attack in New Orleans, he was a 42-year-old Army veteran, an American. He did appear to have some explosive devices in his vehicle. There are also reports from officials that there were potential explosive devices found elsewhere in the French Quarter there in New Orleans. The suspect also had a flag showing support for Islamic State. President Biden said he had recorded, that the suspect had recorded a video showing support for Islamic State as well before the attack. But we don't know if there's really any connection to what we saw happen outside that Trump Hotel in Las Vegas just a few hours later.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about what we do know about this suspect. You mentioned the Islamic State flag and improvised explosive devices found in his truck. But interestingly, he was also an American Army veteran. I mean, what does that tell you?
Yeah, there was a post from, President-elect Donald Trump soon after the attack saying that, suggesting that maybe this was someone who had come into the country illegally. What we do know so far is, as you said, 42-year-old Army veteran from Texas who died at the scene, possibly in a shootout with police there. It sounds like there is a report in the New York Times that the suspect Shamsuddin Jabbar did a tour of with the military in Afghanistan. We don't have a lot of other details. In particular, officials have said that he may have had some help. We don't know that for sure yet. They're talking to acquaintances. They've taken the investigation back to Houston to look to see if there are any leads there, and they're calling on the public for any help the public can provide in terms of what may have been going on in this person's life, what they may have been talking about recently, what led up to all of this tragic evening.
And in terms of the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas, you mentioned that there's a lot more detail that we seem to know about the New Orleans incident. But what's the latest on what investigators have learned in Las Vegas?
Well, investigators, they're tracking some of the closed-circuit TV from around the area. There's reports that the Cybertruck may have driven by the Trump Hotel about an hour before it pulled up right in front. Video that police released from that attack or incident show smoke coming out of the Cybertruck ahead of an explosion. And then after that explosion takes place, after that fire kind of envelops the vehicle, you see fireworks exploding all over the place. We don't yet know if there was a bomb that went off or if it was some other kind of explosive, a massive amount of fireworks. We're not sure beyond that what happened. But certainly terrorism is something that officials are looking at this point.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak, your morning podcast on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 92.9 in Boston, and nationwide on Sirius XM Channel 121.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, now with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto interfaces.
And don't forget to subscribe to Bloomberg News Now. It's the latest news whenever you want it, in 5 minutes or less. Search Bloomberg News Now on your favorite podcast platform to stay informed all day long. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.